Welcome back to Psychedelics Today. I'm your host, Joe Moore. Today on the show we have Thompson, who is an entrepreneur and Kambo practitioner, which if you don't know about it, we're going to get into it in the show, so sit tight. It's a great episode. We go all over the place, and I think you're going to like it. So enjoy. We have some events coming up. I've got three events in Breckenridge. January 31, a short transpersonal breathwork workshop. February 17 and February 18. There's two different individual transpersonal breathwork workshops. They're going to be great. So full day workshops in Breckenridge. Let us know if you want to talk about them. You can reach out at psychedelicstoday@gmail.com. Kyle should have some events coming up in the near future as well. And if you haven't heard, great news. You're going to hear about it a bunch. We are facilitating a week-long retreat in Jamaica with mushrooms. Legal, obviously. So feel free to reach out about that as well. Psychedelics@gmail.com or mycomeditations.com. Enjoy the show. Hey everybody, Joe here. Thanks for listening to this episode. Quick commercial break for you. We are sponsored now by TransZen, a product from EntheoZen. Thompson, who's a member of the psychedelic community, runs events in San Diego, developed this pretty much for herself, and she uses it every day. I now use it every day. I think Kyle as well. And it's a really cool product that fills in a lot of our nutritional gaps. A lot of our behavior and moods come from your diet, your gut biome, and a lot of other factors. But something we can easily control is our nutrition, and this supplement fills out a lot of vitamin, mineral, and amino acids that can really contribute to feeling better. It includes dopamine precursors, serotonin precursors, a lot of B vitamins at reasonable doses, not anything crazy. It's not like you're going overboard. And it's just a really nice product. I've found that it's really lowered my day-to-day stress. So like the peak stress I would experience with my day job, it's substantially lower now. And using it as a recovery aid after partying, that is for sure a great use case as well. She used to make a product or she's still making it and selling it, but called Weekend Warrior. And TransZen is effectively Weekend Warrior 2. And it's not just for partying anymore. It's for day-to-day stuff, and it's great for us in the psychedelic community. A lot of us are using psychedelics to feel better, and if we don't use them regularly enough, sometimes you feel cranky. Perhaps that's because of gut biome stuff or nutritional deficiencies in some really niche areas like B6, and I wholeheartedly endorse it. That's why I've decided to work with Caitlin as a sponsor, and really excited to see where this goes. So check it out, TransZen from EntheoZen, entheozen.com, ENTHEO zen.com. Go to entheozen.com/PT, and you can get a special deal of free shipping. Check it out. Let us know what you think. Bye. Hey, what's up, everybody? Big news, we are putting together a retreat over May 16 through 23 with Myco Meditations and Eric Osborne. Super excited about it. This is going to be the first of many retreats we're putting together, and hopefully we get to do a bunch more with Eric. This is a psilocybin mushroom retreat, Psilocybe cubensis in particular, and we are very excited about it. It's a 7-day retreat at Treasure Beach in Jamaica in a beautiful beach resort. We are just super excited about it. All the reviews we've heard have been wonderful. We've got a lot of friends that have been down there and have given us great reviews. This will be our first time based on our conversations with all of our friends and Eric himself. We are just super excited to be part of it and can't wait to bring you psychedelic experiences on beaches in Jamaica. So check it out, and you can learn more over at mycomeditations.com. Hope you enjoy the show, and hope to see you in Jamaica. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Psychedelics Today. Today on the show we have Thompson, founder and owner of EntheoZen. And Caitlin, thanks for being here.
Thanks for inviting me. It's my pleasure.
I'm really happy to have you. So you're actually a Kambo practitioner. You've got a little bit of experience with 5-MeO-DMT, and you run this kind of nutraceutical kind of supplement company that we'll get into. But I think just to introduce people, Maybe can you give us a little bit of a sketch of who you are and why you got into psychedelics in the first place?
Yeah, so like a lot of people, I started exploring with psychedelics as a young adult. Primarily, in my college days was really when I was getting deeper and deeper into it. And also, like a lot of other people, it started out as a recreational exploration that soon escalated into a spiritual opening. And I think for me, I actually discovered that psychedelics were kind of helping me medicate for, at the time I didn't really know what my condition was, and I can, talk more about that later. But my symptoms were a lot of depression, anxiety, fatigue, pain, just overall sensitivity and lack of resilience to stressors. And I found that LSD and mushrooms were actually helping me medicate and stay pretty balanced neurochemically. So I was studying neurobiology as an undergraduate, and of course I became more and more fascinated with psychedelics and how they worked as far as a neuroscience perspective, and wanted to understand why they were giving me relief and why they seemed to give other people relief. So that was kind of the beginning of the sprouting of my passion for psychedelics and how they could be integrated into holistic healing and just optimal health and well-being.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, if you're comfortable talking about what you were suffering from, that might be helpful too for a lot of people to hear that.
Yeah, certainly. So, like I said, originally it was just depression and anxiety, very, very typical symptoms. And I was partying a lot. I was going to festivals, Burning Man. I was, going down to the jungle and drinking ayahuasca, all as a college student. And when I started to get into the heavier classes, I took a step back from partying a little bit, just to focus on school, really. And what I noticed was around the 7th and 8th week after my last LSD experience, I would start to chemically unravel and get more and more anxious and irritable and just kind of unstable. And it took about 3 or 4 times of this occurring before I really connected the dots. And I go, oh, wow, I actually have this pervasive depression or whatever that I've been medicating with pretty effectively and sustainably with psychedelics. Because depression runs in my family and also autoimmune conditions, which later will be more relevant. And so it really just started with me actually discovering that there was even something wrong with me, because my whole life I kind of felt that I wasn't quite right. I always had to sleep 12 hours, even as a kid. I didn't seem to absorb nutrients very well. I was really thin. I was just an eating machine. And I had skin problems and fibromyalgia type sensitivity to pain, blah, blah, blah. But I was never diagnosed with anything because everyone told me I was normal. And so that was the first time I even started to acknowledge that, there might actually be something not quite right. And the psychedelics were the first thing that I discovered were alleviating it. And so, of course, I wanted to dig deeper into understanding what was the root of the issue and how I could use other tools such as nutrition or herbs to also mitigate it and really get to the core issue. Because psychedelics are great, but sometimes you don't have access to them. Sometimes it doesn't make sense for you to take 10 hours to be on LSD. Whatever. There's a variety of reasons why they're not always the easiest tool to access. So I started just diving down the rabbit hole on the scientific literature of mood disorders and just became obsessed with that and found that nutrition was highly relevant to psychiatric conditions and depression and anxiety. And a lot of basic nutrients such as B6 or magnesium were actually fundamental players in enzymatic conversions of making neurotransmitters or restoring neural tissue and blah, blah, blah. And from there, I just started on my own health journey and realized I had all these food sensitivities and realized I had microbiome imbalances and some gut infections. I later got a diagnosis of Lyme disease. I had small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, candida overgrowth. I had some other central nervous system infections, all sorts of words to describe basically a person whose body has become dysfunctional. Their immune system has gone awry. Their body is chronically inflamed, and there's all these various symptoms. And I also discovered that there was a really strong emotional element from my childhood where I didn't quite feel safe and secure that ultimately put my nervous system in a state that resembled PTSD. And so I really found that the nervous system being upset and stuck in this chronic flight or fight response was actually downstream causing all these changes in immune response and inflammation pathways and the microbiome and digestion and a whole array of physiological functions. And ultimately, I believe that the trauma as a child was what compromised my body and allowed organisms to take it over, allowed the immune system to be ineffective and confused and ultimately attack my own body. So then I kind of got into the mind-body connection, just seeing how, there actually is a lot of science on how trauma and aversive childhood experiences are highly correlated with chronic illnesses.
Yeah, that's really interesting. There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, sorry, I kind of just laid it all out.
That's perfect.
Yeah, no worries. So what was your experience like with using psychedelics, like in that recreational setting? How did it kind of put you on this path to go a little bit into studying, say, like these vitamins or just gut health and these different alternative ways of viewing the body?
Yeah. I think, like I said in the beginning, it was just something to take that made me feel good and it was enjoyable. And then it started to open me up more. And I feel like it actually was cultivating more of a awareness and a mindfulness in me and changing me in ways that it was hard to articulate. But I just felt like more holistically just myself and just, I don't know, there was a lot of just very subtle improvements. And I think when DMT came into the picture for me, just the awareness of it and also the experience of it, I found it just really intellectually curious that this compound mysteriously existed in almost everything. And I started to really consider the spiritual dimensions of the psychedelics and that maybe these weren't hallucinations, maybe these were actually us accessing other places that were not in our regular three-dimensional reality. And then, I started exploring with ayahuasca and other medicines, getting more deeply spiritual with them as time went on. And the more I learned also about biology, because of course I'm going through my degree while having all these psychedelic experiences, so I'm feeling more and more connected to nature and our material world and just seeing how consciousness is really emerging in all of matter while I'm going through my undergraduate degree. And I just became more and more inspired by life and all these biological mechanisms that were so intelligently crafted, really, and really developed a spiritual relationship with nature and food and molecules and just everything in our world I saw as spiritual at that point. So it was easy to transition to seeing nutrients and herbs as medicines and as an extension of something more intelligent than we were really aware of.
And when you started to maybe go down this path of herbs and supplements and whatnot, did you kind of start moving away towards taking psychedelics like regularly?
It's been a gradual decrease, and that's certainly not because I don't really endorse psychedelics as medicines. It was more that as I started to heal my physical body, I needed the really powerful medicines less. Because with the herbs and the nutritional process that I was going through in restoring balance to my physiology, I was just not in need of dramatic correction as much with these potent psychedelics. And to this day, I still have regular psychedelic experiences, but they are getting kind of further apart, as I get healthier and healthier, because lately I just feel great. And, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I just asked that in the sense I feel like a lot of people think like psychedelics can be this like huge healing panacea. And sometimes like the real work after an experience could be taking care of yourself and learning some of like that, just taking care of yourself physically. I mean, it's so interesting with gut biome and how like, you know, a lot of your serotonin receptors that are in your gut and just how that affects your mental health. So yeah, I don't know. I was just curious about that.
Yeah, like I've certainly witnessed the limitations of psychedelics, and they're very useful tools, but they are one tool and they're not the answer to everything. And I personally experienced stuff kind of erupting out of me emotionally doing the Kambo frog medicine and neurofeedback training, which I didn't expect to have emotional releases from that. But it really highlighted the limitations of psychedelics for me, because I'm thinking, how come none of this showed up when I'm in the jungle drinking ayahuasca every night for 16 days? I guess just every medicine has its blind spots. And so I highly encourage people to employ multiple modalities in their healing process, because they all bring something to the table and they all lack things. And so, you know, if you're microdosing because you have depression or whatever, but really you need to change your diet or you need to clear out some microbial overgrowths or infections, then psychedelics are just going to mitigate your symptoms, and they're not ultimately going to cure your chronic depression or whatever. So I find that using all these tools in conjunction with each other to create a holistic protocol is really what's best.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was really interesting because just being in this realm and doing so much breath work, like I always have like this weird pain down towards my abdomen because I have this huge scar on my stomach and I probably have like adhesions and scar tissue and whatnot. And I always thought it was like psychosomatic. And every time I jump into like either a psychedelic experience or breath work, I'm like, all right, I got to like push through this psychosomatic thing. Maybe I'm holding something on there and I just need to go at it. And during breath work sessions, I always get body work in that region and just like never resolved. And I'm like, you know, hearing all these stories of psychosomatic disorders being resolved in non-ordinary states. And you know, I've tried acupuncture and all this stuff. And then I finally went to a naturopath, and he was like, well, it seems really muscular. He's like, let's just get you to physical therapy. And, you know, it was just such a different approach. I'm like, yeah, it does feel a lot more muscular than psychosomatic. Like, I think I need to take another approach with it. So, yeah, holistic kind of integrative approach is really important.
Yeah, and it's like, obviously it's important to address the psychosomatic, but usually by the time something is manifested into a physical symptom, there is a very real physiological thing going on there that also needs to be corrected. You know, for example, maybe it was a childhood trauma that caused an autoimmune condition later down the road. Yes, you should absolutely resolve your emotional baggage, but even if you do that, that doesn't mean that your autoimmune condition is going to go away, because by that point, it has been physically manifested, and both of those things need to be corrected simultaneously to truly eradicate the problem.
I love right now how much integrative medicine is picking up, and we're using multimodality solutions now. It's not just, here's these antibiotics. Well, maybe there's 10 fundamental causes also, like malnutrition or whatever else.
Sure. Or stress, you know? Stress compromises the body. And then you get infections. Otherwise, your body could maybe handle it on its own, but if you're compromised, you're compromised, you know?
It's funny, we have a compromised ability to even notice stress a lot of the times, at least in America, I'm sure elsewhere too. It's just we're almost incentivized to not recognize it. Or maybe that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, well, we're certainly used to it.
So I'm curious if we can dig into Kambo a little bit, because we have not talked to anybody about that on the show before.
Ooh, all right.
Yeah, you're number one.
Oh, cool. So where do I start?
So what is it?
Okay, so Kambo is this traditional Amazonian medicine. It comes from the skin secretion of a specific type of frog. The species is Philomedusa bicolor. And the secretion contains hundreds of bioactive peptide molecules, and a lot of them have been studied scientifically, and actually there's about 70 patents turning many of these into pharmaceutical compounds for the Western, conventional medical field. And traditionally, it was used by the hunters of the tribes. and they would take the medicine before going on multiple day hunts because it would improve their visual acuity, their hearing. It would allegedly cover their human sense so they could track animals better. And then they had increased endurance and stamina and reduced need for food and water. And overall, they were just more robust. And then they would also use it, for women and children when they had various illnesses like malaria or parasites or snake bites or, a whole variety of things. They also use it to clear what's called panema, which is basically like negative energy or bad luck, dark energy. So you apply the medicine by making superficial burns on the skin, and you just remove the top layer and expose the lymphatic tissue underneath, and you apply these little boogery globs of the rehydrated frog secretion, and the effects are pretty dramatic. It comes on very fast, like within 30 seconds to a minute, and your heart will beat much harder and fuller. You'll get like a hot flushing sensation, like as if you took a bunch of niacin. You'll feel all sorts of sensations, like in your fingers and your toes, and your head might feel like it's filling up with pressure. People's faces can swell, and then, of course, you have nausea, and vomiting is a pretty fundamental part of the experience. And then there's other ways to purge as well, using the restroom or crying or sweating or mucus, shaking. There's a lot of ways that the body kind of moves things out energetically and physically. And it just causes this massive detox reaction that it's intense, but it's short and sweet. The whole experience is generally like, over in 30 minutes for people. And it's like having some bad food poisoning for 20 minutes, and you vomit and you remove all this old toxic bile that's just accumulated various fat soluble toxins over the years because your body recycles bile. So it's really good at binding things that don't get excreted through your kidneys, which are, water soluble. And it tends to pull toxins out of various tissues and deposit them in the gut, and then you remove them by vomiting. And it's a really interesting medicine because there's a very potent physical aspect to it. These peptides are very antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, anti-cancerous, very immune modulating. Like there's very much a biological medical effect that we see documented in the scientific literature. But then there's also a spiritual aspect to it. Although it is not hallucinogenic like a psychedelic is, it's its own thing. It can be a bit state changing in the same way that breath work is. But for the most part, you're pretty coherent, and people are able to drive home afterwards safely. But there's a really bizarre and unique metaphysical aspects to it that I haven't found with anything else. There's nothing else like it, to my knowledge. And it's this sense that the external world is being manipulated by the same force that was in the Kambo medicine. So you see this internal process going on, like on a physical level and an emotional level, but then you see the external world also seems to be manipulated and synchronizing with your Kambo experience, which is really weird. But you ask a lot of people that have had the experience, and they'll agree that there's something kind of eerie about it, and it kind of violates all of our understanding of material reductionist thinking and how could something that you take internally affects the circumstances of the outside world. Well, I don't know.
Do you have an example of something like that?
Just the synchronicities that occur, it's gotten to a point where I just no longer think they're a coincidence. The way that the frog calls people and brings them together, and the themes that I see, like, they're very seemingly random. For example, for some reason, a chameleon keeps coming up around this medicine for me. My very first time ever going to Iquitos to do ayahuasca, had never drank ayahuasca yet, arrived at the retreat center. The first night I was there, had this very vivid dream about a green tree frog and then a chameleon asking me, what is you? What is you? I had never heard of Kambo at the time. I'd never drank ayahuasca at the time. And that dream really stuck with me, and I didn't know why. And then years later, I had my first experience with the medicine, and my roommate showed up with a pet chameleon that day. It was really bizarre. And then all this crazy life transition started happening. It felt like my life was like falling apart and unraveling. And actually, just the other day, I went and did a treatment on a client, and he had a chameleon there. It was like very weird. It was just little things like that, or messages that you kind of get intuitively that sync up, and you can't explain it, but it happens over and over and over with this medicine. And it kind of happens with psychedelics sometimes, but not as much.
Interesting. Sounds like chameleons, like your spirit animal trying to call to you.
I don't know. It's weird because I've probably seen a chameleon, those 3 times of my entire life, but it always shows up with a frog for some reason.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. And I hear that people typically feel really energized and like really awesome for the next 2 weeks or so. Is that right? Like I've heard like people just describe it as having like energy they've never felt before, and they just feel like just supercharged after a session.
I mean, ideally, that doesn't always happen. Like, I work a lot with chronic illness people, so they tend to have what's called die-off symptoms, or like a Herxheimer effect, and they have these massive detox reactions because usually they have a bunch of organisms that are just exploding and dying, and that takes a while for the body to remove. So you can feel quite lethargic and kind of icky and hungover afterwards. But if you're a generally healthy person, then yeah, you kind of reap the benefits right away. But if you have Lyme disease or Epstein-Barr virus or Crohn's or some autoimmune condition, then usually it takes a few treatments for you to get to the good part. But each time the detox reaction gets shorter and shorter, and usually it takes 3 or so treatments, and then they're feeling really good after that, even if they were chronically ill. But yeah, if you're healthy, then you just pop up and you're feeling good the next week or 2.
So what does the protocol look like? Is it like, say somebody with autoimmune disease, you were working with them, would it be like one treatment every 2-3 weeks or so?
It really depends on each individual, and it also depends on how motivated they are, because some people, it's really good to aggressively attack something and do it 3 days in a row if they really want to just get this done with and move on with their life. Other people, maybe they're fragile, and I know they're going to have a huge Herxheimer detox reaction, and I say, okay, well, let's treat this aggressively, but let's give your body some time to actually deal with the burden of the toxic disposal. And maybe we do it 3 weeks in a row, once a week. Or some people, they do it once and they go, I never want to do that again. Other people make it part of their maintenance and they do it once a month. It really is up to the individual. I can always give my suggestion on what's going to be the most effective, but it's hard to get people to do what they honestly should do for their health,
Yeah. And are there any risks involved?
There's certainly contraindications. Certain heart conditions, if somebody's had open heart surgery or certain things that you're not sure the heart can handle, the elevated heartbeat. Kind of like if they aren't cleared to do cardio exercise, they shouldn't do this because the heartbeat will increase. People with stents can actually take this medicine, as long as it's done carefully. So it's not all heart situations. People with Addison's disease, because your blood pressure can drop quite low, and people with Addison's disease do have low blood pressure. So that's contraindicated. Some severe psychiatric conditions, mostly just because you can possibly put somebody in a mania episode. If somebody's pregnant or breastfeeding, if they are on immunosuppressant drugs for an organ transplant, kind of really severe conditions. But even people that are really sick generally can be safely administered to. I would say the biggest risk in general is that people can pass out. So it's my job to be really highly attentive and attuned to them so that if they black out, I can protect their head and make sure that they're safe. And, sometimes they'll pass out and then they're like vomiting while they're passing out. And you want to make sure they're on their side so that they don't basically asphyxiate on their own vomit. So just like really simple things like that can be really serious, but they're easy if you're on top of it and paying attention.
And what's like a normal dose? Like I've seen some people with 3 little dots. I've seen people with 6 dots. Like, is there a maximum dose that might be too much for people?
It really varies also on the practitioner. For example, I did my certification with the IAKP, the International Association of Kambo Practitioners, and they generally tend to put more points on than I do in my practice. But also the size of my points seem to be bigger because the stick I use is bigger. So there's a lot of variation. I find that people get perfectly good results with lower doses. I typically don't tend to go above 6 or 7 points on people, whereas some practitioners, that's like a starting point for them, and they'll go up to 10 or even 20 points. I haven't really found that to be necessary a lot of times. I feel like they're getting a perfectly potent experience with 3 to 5 points, and I don't think it's linear. I don't think that, 1 point, or I don't think 10 points is the equivalent to 10 times 1 point. I think you kind of get saturated after a certain point, and I don't know. I feel like I like to also not totally kick people's asses. Like, I feel like there's a way that you can be effective, but not like just blatantly overpowering their body and making them miserable. I don't know. Maybe I'm just too nice, but I don't think more is always more,
I think we have a cultural, I don't know, our culture wants to see some very strong physical effects, and that's how we know it's working. It's the same way you go in and get a massage. Like me personally, I'm like, okay, please make me yell a whole bunch because that's how I know it's working. When in fact, trained massage therapists typically say, no, it's actually more effective if it doesn't hurt. So, yeah, I think that's a cultural thing we're dealing with, and maybe why ayahuasca, the way we drink it, is the way it is, because we want super strong psychedelic and physical effects, because that's how we know, quote-unquote, know it's working.
Right, because more is more in America,
Yeah, well, many places. I'm sure China's almost there, too. It's going to be quite the future we're coming into. How is the... Are you aware of any like the sustainability aspects of Kambo? Are things going okay with the frog?
Yeah, absolutely. So the frog virtually has no predators because everybody's learned by this point that you don't eat it because you feel like shit after. But what's actually kind of silly about it is the peptides actually aren't toxic. They're not truly a poison. They're a defense mechanism, but even snakes can get a mouthful of this stuff. And they're a little bit messed up, for a bit, but then they're fine and they go away. So the frog, the population is quite healthy, and they're quite robust too because they cover themselves in it. They secrete it, and then they use their little hands to wipe it all over their skin. And so they're not getting these fungal infections that are wiping out a lot of other species of frog. They're pretty healthy because they have this antimicrobial shield, basically, and nobody wants to eat them. And as far as the harvesting of it, at least where I get the medicine, I can't necessarily speak for all sourcing, but I get my sticks through the IAKP, who I'm certified with, and they work directly with the Maasai tribes in Brazil, and they oversee that the frogs are treated very kindly. They actually sing to the frogs, and they come down from the trees and come to the people, so nobody's making them do anything. They're choosing to come to the humans and go with them. And they're really not in distress while they're milking them. They only take about 20% of the venom, or the secretion, I should say, so that they have 80% left for their needs. And they also mark their wrists with an ink that wears off within, maybe 6 weeks or something, so that they know if they catch a frog that still has the ink, that it hasn't had enough time to really replenish its secretion, and so they don't milk it until it's ready. And yeah, the frogs are really treated with respect and kindness and not harmed in the process. And it also really is given a good opportunity to the tribes, because now they have money so they can kind of participate with the outside world. And it allows them to continue to live in the jungle and ultimately defend it from the government taking it. So every time you serve someone in Kambo and you purchase those sticks, at least from the IAKP I can speak of, you're helping really protect the jungle and the indigenous tribes there and the frogs and a lot of other animals.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious about this training that you went through. Was it in America? Was it down in South America? Like, what was that process like?
Yeah, it was in Bellingham, Washington. They actually do trainings all over the world, like in Sri Lanka and Poland and the UK and all over the place. It's really picking up speed. There's more and more practitioners. The organization is growing, and it was a 14-day training, and it was pretty intense. It definitely was. We definitely did a lot of Kambo ourselves there, and we had to do something called the Warrior Initiation as one of our sessions, where you do what's called a 3x3. And you basically receive Kambo 3 times in 3 hours. And you basically just do it 3 times in a row. Like, as soon as you're not completely wiped out and laying down, you sit up and you put it on again. And you increase the dose every time. And it's a really interesting experience, actually. It was difficult to get through. And a lot of the trainings, not everybody makes it through the 3x3. And therefore, they don't complete their certification.
It's interesting, meaning they are not willing to take the second or third dose.
Yeah, they say, I just can't do it. Or they can't really get themselves to move through it fast enough, and then they run out of time and they didn't get to their third.
Do they have to self-administer?
No, for that one, you have somebody, a practitioner. We would basically work on each other. We would pair up for different ceremonies and have a practitioner and have the receiver. We did self-administer as another one of the treatments. So, yeah, that's like a different ball game.
Hey, everybody, Joe here. This podcast is brought to you by Entheozen. We want to feature their product, TransZen. It is great, and I've been taking it daily for a while now. I think it's a wonderful product, and we want to have more of you guys try it out. We've partnered with them to get you free shipping. So check them out at entheozen.com/PT to get your Psychedelics Today free shipping offer. And maybe we can talk about, like, why would you want to go to somebody certified as opposed to, I don't know, somebody in your dorm?
Yeah, the certification, it can be a bit arbitrary because there's plenty of really quality practitioners that aren't certified, and you certainly don't need to be certified to be good. For me, it was a little bit of a label thing, It's like getting your PhD. It's just so that people feel more comfortable with you. But there was a lot of really useful content taught in the course, and I do feel like I probably do have an upper hand because I have the training versus other practitioners that maybe didn't really have the exposure, because my teachers, they've treated a lot of people, and so they've seen a lot of stuff, and they were able to kind of collect a lot of data and have observations about, okay, we tend to see this reaction in this condition or this type of person, or, they've learned from doing an enormous amount of ceremonies, and that's extremely valuable information. And so I do feel like the IAKP really brings a lot of experience to the table that is helpful, because then you can teach people that right away when they start, and then they don't have to learn the hard way and have somebody get hurt by just not realizing something so simple.
Yeah, I was going to do it once. A friend brought a stick back, and I was like, he's like, I think I know how to do it. And I was like,
yeah.
I don't know if I'm willing to, because I didn't know too much about it at the time. And I was like, well, I know it increases your heart and this and that. Like, what if you overdose me? And that's why I was asking about dose. It's like, I don't know anything about this. Like,
yeah, there have been incidences before, and it's rare, but yeah, I definitely wouldn't encourage anybody to just buy a stick on the internet and do it to themselves, because there's a lot more to it than just, burning some holes in somebody and putting the stuff on. There's a lot of other safety things that we mentioned, like who's going to help you when you pass out. who's going to know how to help you purge, who's going to know when you need to purge, who's going to know how much water you need to drink to safely get this, bile out of you. There's a lot to it, and I would never suggest that anybody do it with a practitioner that has taught themselves by reading the internet or whatever,
Yeah, he was down in Peru for like 2 weeks or something like that. So he had, I guess, like his own experience down there. But I was like, I don't know if I want to do this right now.
Yeah, well, having an experience is a lot different than serving it to people and being responsible for their safety.
Exactly.
And what are some dangers? Like how often would you see somebody like has an allergic reaction or something negative, or pretty much never?
So there's actually been no observed cases of a true allergic reaction as an anaphylactic shock. The peptides don't seem to stimulate the immune system in that way. That's usually like an IgE immunoglobulin response or antibody response. So we don't see that necessarily. We see strong reactions. And when the face swells, on occasion, the throat can swell a little bit. And then in very, very rare situations, the throat can just be a little uncomfortably tight, but it never closes up, like if you have an anaphylactic situation. And if that does occur, which it almost never does, I've never seen it. I've only heard one case of that happening with my teacher. And they just wipe the points off, and within 30 seconds, you're fine, and the swelling goes away, and the person was able to breathe, and then they put more points on them, and it didn't happen again. So I think, honestly, the biggest danger is people falling and hurting themselves. And I do know of one case with a friend who was very fragile with a chronic illness, mold exposure, Lyme disease, the whole array of chronic problems. And in her case, I think somebody gave her too big of a dose, and her body wasn't able to handle the detox reaction. She couldn't handle the die-off. It was just too much of a toxic load released at once. And she felt like her condition was exacerbated by that experience. But again, that's one case out of thousands. So it's not common for things to go wrong. And if you have a practitioner that's really intuitive and responsible and cautious, it's generally very, very safe.
Cool. And do you use, like it on the word, Ape or Nunu or anything like that?
Yeah, I administer the Hape and Sananga as well. They're optional. I'm not personally a huge fan of Hape just because tobacco's in the nightshade family, and I actually can't eat nightshade vegetables. So anything nightshade screws me up pretty bad. So I don't personally use Hape, but I offer it if people want it.
Yeah, I know it's kind of complementary to Sapo or Kambo.
Yeah, especially if someone's having like some energetic blockage that's maybe stopping them from really purging because they're holding on to something. Sometimes you just, quick shot to the brain and you get them purging, and it just helps them move it out better.
No, what was the other one, Nuno, that you mentioned, Kyle?
It's kind of like the same thing. The Nunu, I think my friend got it. He used it when he was down there. I forget where he went to. I think it sounds familiar, the Matse tribe, but he was in Peru.
I think they are the ones that produce the Nunu.
Yeah, Nunu is just the tobacco, but I think they use the inner bark of the theobromine cacao plant and mix it in there. So, I don't know. I know different tribes probably use different herbs and
I have one medicines. That's got cappy vine in it, and I actually have one that's tobacco free. That's the only one that I use, called Aperina. I'm not even sure what's in it. All I know is there's no tobacco in it.
I think I might have used a non-tobacco one, or it might have had tobacco. I don't know. It came from like the Polynesian Islands. My friend came from Australia, and they had it, and it was pretty interesting. I liked it.
Yeah,
I'm not too sure what it was in there. I was like, is this tobacco or what? And they're like, I don't know, just some guy gave it to me.
Bunch of powder.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, I've really been playing with the idea of creating like medicinal herbal snuffs they're kind of like coffee, but not really because they're not going to have tobacco. But, I'm thinking of and all the antimicrobial herbs that I've taken to kill off, bacteria and stuff. But I don't always want them in my gut because then my gut flora also gets a little bit, eradicated. And so I thought, what if you, blow them up the nose, kind of like with Hape, and that could possibly be a novel way for them to get in systemically without going through the gut. So I'll let you know how that goes. I'll probably try it soon with some herbs that have water-soluble compounds in them so they can go through the mucus.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, you have me a little bit more convinced now to try Kambo.
You guys got to come fly out here. Or I'll come to Colorado, or I'll come to New York. I don't know.
Cool. Yeah, I've got some excuses to be in Southern California for sure. So
oh, cool.
can make that work. Okay, so let's talk about your company and the products you make there. I think people on the show maybe get the sense that we think about nutrition a little bit here on the show, because a lot of times people that are doing a lot of drugs don't eat well. And as a result, you can become symptomatic of all sorts of different things, especially pre-post drug binge. You really want to eat and do well so that you can feel normal again sooner. Yeah, so let's talk about like why you developed the company and the products you developed.
Yeah. So again, it kind of goes back to my original story of having my own depression, anxiety, realized the psychedelics were helping, and then kind of went down the rabbit hole of the nutritional side of things. And I decided, how come doctors don't know this? Like, how come doctors don't know that B6 is a fundamental catalyst for converting amino acids to neurotransmitters? How come they don't know that these plant compounds upregulate neurotrophic growth factors that sprout new neurons and dendrites? And so I thought, man, I got to make something that's employing all this information, because at the time I was like, I don't get why nobody else has done this for people yet. So I just integrated all of the scientific literature that I was collecting, and I did a lot of self-experimentation too, and kind of intuitively felt out certain nutrients and plant extracts and stuff, and I ended up formulating my own line of supplements specifically for brain and mood health. And like you mentioned, I find that in the party communities, people are using drugs, they're kind of medicating in general, and we all do it, whether it's with exercise or our phone or MDMA or alcohol or whatever. Everyone's kind of medicating, and I found that harm reduction is great, and for a while I was teaching these harm reduction workshops, and it's really important to do that. But I thought, what if we could make harm reduction about more than just keeping people from dying? What if we could actually make it so that they could have a healthier party experience and nourish and revitalize their brains after all of the abuse of staying up all night? Because, whether there's drugs involved, staying up all night is detrimental to the brain anyways. So I developed this party recovery supplement called Weekend Warrior, and have been distributing that around the festival scene in Southern California for the last few years. And then I have a mood enhancement and stress support formula that's selling really well. It's called Transcend, and it's basically designed, for depression and anxiety, but it can also be satisfied as a party recovery supplement, because I don't know how much longer the Weekend Warrior is going to be around. But fear not, listeners, you can always use the Transcend to get the same job done. It will just be a different labeled product.
Yeah, I was going to say the ingredients are pretty similar.
Yeah, they are. Transcend really is a superior product. It's kind of like Weekend Warrior 2.0, but just marketed differently. And then I'm coming out with what I call a psychobiotic product within the next few months, hopefully. And it's basically a probiotic for brain and mood health, because, as you mentioned, the relationship between the gut and the brain is quite intimate and important. And I formulated this product with all these specific species of probiotics that have been clinically studied to improve things like depression or resilience to stress, or actually boost serotonin and dopamine production, and are immune modulating and all sorts of stuff. So I'm really excited about that product coming out soon. I can definitely let you guys know more about it when the time comes, but it's still quite not ready. And basically the premise of how I developed the product, just to kind of explain the science behind it in broad terms. So I really focus on 4 staple concepts in the cutting edge neuroscience research around mood disorders and the pathology of psychiatric illness. And the first premise is filling in nutritional gaps, because you can't build a brick wall without bricks. If you aren't getting enough amino acids or the cofactors or the minerals or whatever to actually create neurotransmitters and create and repair cell membranes and keep all these parts working by having the materials to repair and rebuild and replenish, then you're going to get nowhere. So I fill the nutritional gaps by providing nutrients that are pretty fundamental to healthy brain chemistry. And then I am trying to promote a healthy inflammatory response. At least that's how I can say it according to the FDA. But ultimately, we don't want inflammation of the nervous system. And that is truly the driver of depression and psychiatric illness. It's inflammation. It's not too little serotonin. It's not a brain abnormality necessarily. It's inflammation. And so, we have a lot of herbs in there that promote a healthy inflammatory response in the nervous system. And also what goes hand in hand with inflammation is oxidative stress. So you have these free radical compounds that create cellular damage at the molecular level. And unfortunately, inflammation creates free radicals as a byproduct, and free radicals damaging cells through oxidative stress creates more inflammation. So it's this vicious feedback loop, and those two are intimately linked. So we try to reduce the amount of oxidative stress that's happening by actually upregulating your body's endogenous supply of antioxidants. Antioxidants coming from the herbs are cool, but they actually don't really make much of a dent in your body's own combative way of neutralizing free radicals. They actually stimulate your body to upregulate its own production, which is really where the magic happens. And then fourth, I add things that have been studied to upregulate neuronal growth factors that basically prompt neurogenesis, or the sprouting of new neurons, dendrites, synaptic spines, and neural structures. Because what happens is when you have the inflammation and the oxidative stress, they start to shrivel and be damaged, and then you have less synaptic connections, and the cell's ability to communicate with other cells is compromised. And then you have something that seems like a deficiency in serotonin and dopamine, but really it's a deficiency of synaptic connections that are healthy. So those are the four principles that I've created the product on, and so far, people are getting really great results. I have a lot of really great reviews on Amazon of people avoiding medications or getting off medications. So I'm really happy with the results people are getting with the Transcend product, at least.
Yeah. And can you talk a little bit about what's in there?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a bunch of vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and plant extracts in summary. But there's 17 scientifically studied ingredients in there, including methylated forms of B vitamins, magnesium, zinc, 5-HTP, L-theanine, and then I have ashwagandha, spirulina, blueberry extract, turmeric extract, passion flower, lemon balm, black pepper extracts, mucuna pruriens, so that you have the L-dopa, which is a dopamine precursor. I'm not sure if I missed anything else, but there's a lot of really good things in there, and just kind of helps provide your brain with the resources it needs to actually correct itself.
You did pretty good. I think just lemon balm extract and blueberry extract. I just have a bottle here, but yeah, awesome. I've been taking 2 a day, and I've been really enjoying them. Definitely been feeling a little bit more focused and calm, and just kind of keeping me in the moment, which is really nice.
Yeah, you don't have to necessarily be depressed to get use out of them, that's for sure. I take them on a daily basis, and I'm actually really stoked that I made a product that I like so much personally.
Absolutely. So I've been using it for 2 purposes. I had some pretty serious party weekends a few months ago, and I got the chance to use those to recover. And I actually had my friends taking those and/or Weekend Warrior the morning after. And it was, it was kind of a bender. It was like 3 nights in a row or something stupid like that. Maybe only 2, I forget. But but it was great. Everybody was really well recovered. Like I would say at least I felt really good maybe an hour or 2 after taking them in that kind of party scenario. And that was really awesome to know that I have that in my arsenal, my bag of tricks now. And then the other thing is, just like Kyle, I've also been taking them daily now. And I feel like, so my day gig in software is really tough sometimes, like a lot of money on the line for a lot of people. So I'm like kind of buffering everybody's stress. So I'm like this ball of stress as a result. And I feel like this has really balanced out my super peak stress experiences at work. And I don't think I've been doing anything different other than adding that supplement in. And it just feels really good. So I'm kind of happy.
Awesome. Yeah. That's what I like to hear.
They definitely helped me during finals week, writing papers and stuff like that. That's for sure. To just like calm down on the stress or just stay focused. I noticed I was staying focused on the papers and getting my work done instead of just like multitasking, looking up dumb shit on the internet and whatnot. But I just felt like I wasn't so in my mind and I was just in the zone with it, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, the trick to feeling good and being able to focus is really having a healthy, resourced brain. It's quite simple when you think about it,
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess before we jump to the next subject, anything else you want to throw in on this one?
Me or Kyle?
Either.
I'm sure some people are probably curious with supplements, like where the source of the material.
Yeah, so I take that really seriously. And unfortunately, the supplement industry is a little bit of a shit show. And I'm coming to find that. And it's upsetting because I really want to make a product that is really clean and pure and legit, But the product is manufactured in the U.S. and I manufacture it in a facility that is certified by the FDA as having good manufacturing practices. So that means that the FDA can show up unannounced anytime and make sure that they are being compliant so that they can receive that certification. So they make sure everything is clean, and then I get what's called a certificate of analysis before and after that basically looks at the end product as far as contamination or heavy metals or anything that you really don't want in there. So the product is tested on several occasions each batch is tested to ensure that it's what it says it is and that it's safe for people to ingest. So I take that very seriously, and it's unfortunate that that's not the case for the entire industry.
That's really cool. Yeah, and I noticed there was like this third party you have tests as well, which is great. And I really appreciate that. It feels good. Maybe this is a good spot to announce that you've decided to sponsor Psychedelics today. And that's kind of part of the reason why we're excited to talk about it. And I just I'm really happy about this partnership, and I really look forward to see where it goes.
Yeah, me too.
I'm just really interested in why at such a young age, like in college, you got really into ayahuasca. Was that like a strong college cultural thing?
No, not for me. No, I mean, I went to San Diego State, which is like known for their sorority and frat culture. And I was a different person than a lot of my peers for sure. But when I was 21 years old, I was going to Iquitos by myself and drinking ayahuasca. And my first year at Burning Man, I was 20, and I think did DMT when I was 20 years old as well. So I was having a lot of rich experiences that my peers in school weren't having. And actually, I would come to class, and then I would share about all the wild stuff that I did that weekend. And they would be like, wow, they'd be like, yeah, the orgies and the parties, and they're like, wow, and they would like live vicariously through my exciting life. So it was not I was not a typical college student, I don't think. I'm not really a typical person, I would say. Kind of a weirdo.
How'd you come across like ayahuasca and going down to Iquitos at such a young age?
So I had gone to the Brazilian Amazon. I actually went on a cruise ship. I had met this guy on a cruise ship, and he worked on the ship, and then he invited me to come on the ship with him to Brazil. So I got a taste of the Amazon, and like I said, I knew what DMT was, and I was kind of getting more into that and just the implications of a molecule that seems to be pervasive in everything and maybe facilitates consciousness within matter. I don't know. So then, of course, I knew about ayahuasca, and it probably took me a year or two of knowing about it before I actually acted on it. And I don't know, it's one of those things where something tells you to just go do something, and then you do it, and it changes your life forever.
That's awesome. Yeah, it took me probably like a decade of hearing about ayahuasca before I drank it, which is really interesting. I was a little scaredy cat. I had to do a lot of breath work and inner work, and then I was like, okay, I guess it's time for other medicine too. It's kind of like this pre-integrative state where I was like, okay, I know it's good to like hit all these corners with all these different substances because not everything hits everything. So yeah, it just took a while. I'm really happy I did it.
Better late than never.
8 years ago. I haven't had ayahuasca in like 8 years. It's pretty intense.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I think you're due.
Yeah, a little overdue. Cool. So we're at about an hour. So let's maybe throw out some links where people can follow up on your work, both Kambo and Entheozen.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I have a special link for you guys, for the Psychedelics Today listeners, and there's two ways you can reap the benefits, just because I know sometimes it's complicated to type in a link. But my website is entheozen.com. It's like the word entheogen, but entheozen. So entheozen.com. And if you go to entheozen.com/product/PT for Psychedelics Today. Okay? So that's one way that you can get to our products if you want to get free shipping. I'm offering free shipping to anybody that gets to the website through this podcast. And if for some reason you forget or you don't type it right, or maybe I said it wrong, you can also just use the coupon code PT and it'll give you the option for free shipping. So be sure that you check the box on the checkout if you decide. I also have a bunch of other blogs and links to videos that I've done and other sources of things. So maybe you just want to check out the product, but you're not feeling it. But there's a lot of other things on the website for you guys to enjoy. So I encourage you to visit it and reach out to me if you have any questions or want to connect for any reason. But yeah, remember to use your coupon code so that you get free shipping. Coupon code is PT, Psychedelics Today.
And I also just typed it in. I think you can just do entheozen.com/PT and it brings you to the /product/PT.
Oh, does it?
Mm-hmm.
You can just cut out the product part?
Yep.
Okay, that's awesome. So I take that back. entheozen.com/PT.
And then you also do stuff with the Aware Project San Diego, correct? So people can find you there as well?
Yeah. So I run the San Diego chapter of the Aware Project. And, originally it was started in LA by Ashley Booth. So yeah, if you're in San Diego or Southern California, I'm always putting on those monthly events. So feel free to connect through that means as well.
Fantastic. And what about your personal Kambo practitioner site?
Oh, yes. I have a lot of irons in the fire, don't I? Yeah, so if you're interested in receiving Kambo, I do travel, but I'm mostly based out of San Diego, California. And you can find my website. It's medicinefrogkambo.com. You could also Google Kambo San Diego because I'm dominating the SEO. So, yeah, look me up, connect if you feel like you want to get in touch, and I'm happy to meet anybody.
All right, Caitlin, thanks again for joining and really looking forward to catching up again on the show in the future.
Yeah, thank you guys. It was such a pleasure to do this podcast with you guys.
Real quick commercial interruption for you. So this episode is brought to you by Transzen, a product by Entheozen. Caitlin Thompson, who developed the product, is in our community and developed it for us by us. And it is a great product. I have found tremendous benefit from it and really have actually started to use it every single day now and plan to do so for a while. And it's great for kind of mood stabilization and for party recovery, just because we're not really getting all the vitamins, minerals, and aminos that we need in our daily diet, regardless of how well you eat. It's incredibly complicated to eat well enough to get this stuff in your diet. So check it out. There's even a offer for free shipping from their site, and theozen.com/PT for Psychedelics Today. You get free shipping and check it out. Thanks for supporting the show, and back to it. Kyle and I decided to raise some funds using Patreon, which is a really cool way to support the show because you can choose to donate a small portion of money monthly for certain prizes. We are allowing you guys access to interviews before they will ever hit the web. So, for instance, this Horizons episode, they've had that for a few days, and I believe there's some panel discussion stuff we've recorded and made available there. You'll probably also have access to some member or patron-only webinars. We also have rewards including t-shirts, stickers, mugs, access to our Navigating Psychedelics class, and much more. So check it out, patreon.com/psychedelics today, or you can get a link from our site, psychedelicstoday.com. If you want to look really cool in some Psychedelics Today gear, you really want to check out psychedelicstodayshop.com. We've got all sorts of cool stuff, from t-shirts to mugs to shower curtains and pillows. So you check it out. Any small purchase helps, even if it's just some stickers. We got some cool stickers there. Check it out, psychedelicstodayshop.com. Tell your friends. Maybe buy some presents for this upcoming, what do you guys call it, Black Friday? Yeah, Black Friday. Maybe that. Or maybe it's a Christmas present or whatever. We would love you guys to check out some of our stuff there and support the show. Thanks.